We went to heaven. I later returned to my body.
Lori Vallow Daybell, known as the Cult Mom, was found guilty of her role in the murders of her 2 children, Tylee and JJ, as well as Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy Daybell. During her trial, husband Chad Daybell was also implicated in those murders. Now, Chad Daybell is facing charges in those same murders. A key question following Lori Daybell's trial is who really were the masterminds behind that cult conspiracy? Hi, I'm Lainey Law.
And I'm attorney Andrew Myers.
And we're here with Doug Cope today. So now, Andrew, we are talking about a cult murder. Ooh, can you give us a little summation of this story? How did we get to this point right now?
We have to go all the way back to Springfield, Utah, where Chad Daybell grew up as a member of the Mormon Church, also known as the Church of Latter-day Saints, or LDS. But according to Chad, things got a little bit different in his teens. He felt that he now became something of a prophet, as he described it. His aura had become more open than it had been. He met his first wife, Tammy, in college. Then he was a part-time grave digger, believe it or not. During their marriage, they would have 5 children. The couple also founded a book company through which Chad published many religious books. One of the books that he published was his autobiography under the title Living on the Edge of Heaven. In this book, he tells the story of his 2 claimed near-death experiences. Chad Daybell claimed that he had visions of the future and heard a voice that followed him. He told his followers that he knew that the end of the world was coming. Also, that evil zombies were taking over some people's bodies.
Now, so with the whole thing about zombies, it's weird to me because you hear these stories like, oh, your phone's gonna go send out an emergency signal, and it's gonna turn you into a zombie, and you hear these crazy conspiracy theories. But do the people in his life actually believe him? Like when you hear about things, you think that those are like fringe cases and that there's no way that people actually believe that stuff, right?
Well, Chad had this charisma that some religious leaders have, and he was a very prolific author in the past. So some had come to believe that his books were very much in the mainstream. Nonetheless, it seemed that the direction of the books was taking followers very much away from the basic beliefs that people in the center of the LDS original faith had. One author with whom Chad Daybell had worked at this time explained that she stopped working with him when his writings became less focused on LDS doctrine and more radicalized. In her view, his rantings about the coming apocalypse were very dangerous.
And now he was married. How did all of this, what was going on during his personal life during this time period?
Well, he had been married, and then in 2018, he met Lori Daybell. They had an immediate affair. Lori became a dedicated follower of this cult-like group. We can't really, we have to deviate away from the LDS church because he had now adopted some very strange beliefs. The belief that sometimes when you see a person, it's not the person that you're seeing. What you're seeing is someone else possessing that person's body. So Lori apparently fell hook, line, and sinker, not only for Chad Daybell, but also for his beliefs. The next year, 2019, turned out to be a really bad year for anybody that knew these people. In September 2019, Jackson J. Daybell, Lori's 7-year-old son, known as JJ, and Tylee Daybell, Lori's 16-year-old daughter, simply disappeared. Then in October 2019, Chad's wife, Tammy, was said to have died in her sleep. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. But also 2 weeks after Chad's wife, Tammy, died, Chad and Lori got married. And they got married in Hawaii.
2 weeks. Oh my God.
Yes.
What? Oh my gosh, that is insane. Talk about moving on fast. So now these kids are missing, or the wife is dead, and they're getting married in Hawaii. Do these people not know anybody? What's going on with the people close in their life? Aren't they going to be asking questions like, isn't this a little suspect? I mean, 2 weeks is kind of a red flag enough for me. It's crazy.
Yes, there were lots of questions. When Lori was asked where her kids, JJ and Tylee, were, she at first lied, saying the kids were with her old friend Melanie Gibb in Arizona. And of course, investigators aren't stupid. They followed up on that lead. They called Melanie. And Melanie not only didn't know anything about the kids, but she was furious that she was being used as a phony alibi. So now Lori and Chad are living it up in their new home without the kids in Hawaii. They're ignoring the increasing questions by investigators who were trailing them. Finally, in June of 2020, investigators found human remains, turning out to be those of JJ and Tylee, buried in what had apparently been a pet cemetery in the backyard of Chad Daybell's property in Rexburg, Idaho. Also, Chad's wife, remember I said we'd come back to that? Chad's wife, Tammy, was exhumed, and the cause of death and manner of death were found to be asphyxiation and homicide. So that was enough for law enforcement. Chad and Lori were both arrested and jailed in connection with the deaths of Lori's two children, JJ and Tylee, who we see here, as well as Chad's wife, Tammy. Of course, both entered pleas of not guilty.
So obviously, everybody, well, not, I'm not going to say everybody, but very often we see people not pleading not guilty. What is the current status of this whole legal cult mess?
Well, we're seeing now the wedding that they had in Hawaii, and that's JJ, the young boy that ended up buried in the backyard. And of course, they're having a great time in Hawaii. So to answer your question, Lori Daybell was tried in Idaho back in April of 2023. And in May of 2023, she was found guilty. And she was allowed to give a statement. She didn't testify at her trial, but she did give a sentencing statement in which, somewhat bizarre, as that's the only way I can characterized her sentencing statement. She gave a rambling statement quoting the Bible, saying that she died in 2002 when in the hospital in labor with Kylie. She said that somebody put something in her IV. Lori says she was told she had to come back to life on Earth to complete things she had promised to do before she was born. Now, this might all sound crazy to you, but wait until you hear the actual thing itself, that the statement that she gave in court.
In life, because in 2002, when I was pregnant with Tylee, I died in the hospital while in labor with her. They tried to stop my labor. They put me on the table and they put something in my IV, and I felt my spirit falling to the floor. I was standing near my pregnant body, watching the doctors try to revive me, which took them a few minutes. In that time, my sister Stacy was standing to my left. I turned to hug her and was surprised that her spirit was as tangible as a physical body, because I knew I was in spirit and she was in spirit. She said she needed to show me some things, and we went to heaven. I later returned to my body. Because of this experience, I have access to heaven and the spirit world. Since then, I have had many communications from people now living in heaven.
And so people that viewed that kind of scratched their heads. The judge, and I watched the sentencing, the judge pretty much ignored it and said little or nothing about it. But that was her statement. Now, as we record this podcast, husband Chad now faces trial. Trial date is set for April of 2024. Although there's some pretrial motions going on right now, these trial dates are subject to change, so we'll see. there are so many layers behind this that we could go on for hours. For example, one of the characters out there is Lori's brother, Alex Cox.
Yes.
And his potential role in all of this. But for this podcast, we're going to cut it off there. And if you want to see more, let us know in the comments, and we'll be happy to accommodate those comments. So what do you folks think?
Definitely let us know what you want to hear in the comments if you want us to go deeper into this topic.
These two people are nuts. That's all I can say. You know, I'm glad she found heaven. Where was it? New Jersey? Nah, might have been Utah.
No.
These two are just nuts. Now, I think it's also important to note that the death penalty was taken off the table as part of her sentencing because it was determined it could hinder a speedy trial. That same issue is also being taken up in Chad's pretrial motions, that they take the death penalty off the table.
Well, one of the reasons, I know you have a lot more to say, but let's just stop right there. Procedurally, the reason that was given for taking the death penalty off the table in Chad Daybell's trial, in Lori Daybell's trial, was because the prosecutor did not meet some of the deadlines. When you're trying a case, when you're before a court, you have deadlines, and you've got to meet those deadlines unless you have some circumstances that in advance you tell the court. So the prosecutors did not meet a deadline, and so the death penalty was taken off the table. And now Lori Vallow's, and Chad Daybell's attorneys are saying, well, gee, if Lori didn't get it, Chad shouldn't get it. And the argument is, well, wait a minute. No, justice isn't relative. There was a reason for taking it off the table in that case, and that reason doesn't exist. But that issue has not been resolved as we sit here right now.
Yeah, the defense is claiming it would be unconstitutional if, she doesn't face the death penalty and he does. So that's just one aspect. But the latest aspect, just before we went on the air here, is that the judge in this case has ruled that cameras will be allowed in the courtroom during Chad's trial next April. Now, however, those cameras will be operated by the court. They're not letting media bring in cameras or media bring in microphones. So it will be available on the court's YouTube channel, and the court will decide basically how the media is going to be covering this. So the judge, and apparently, I believe, this is the same type of arrangement made during Lori's trial, although there may have been some changes in that along the way. But I think part of it is because now Chad's trial is going to happen, at least right now, in the same courtroom as Lori's trial. And that's 350 miles away from the county where this case, the jurisdiction of this case in this particular county in Idaho. So the judge has also said he likes the YouTube idea because there are going to be a lot of family members or friends who are interested in this case and want to be able to follow it and won't be able to go the 350 miles from one jurisdiction to the next on a regular basis in order to be in the courtroom. Right. So that's an important part of this case that has been decided. There's another aspect of this case as well that has to be decided beforehand. And now
before you get to the next aspect, Idaho does not like media. They just don't like, and they don't trust the media. I don't know what the reason for it is, but do you remember we went over the one author who wrote a book about the Kohberger case, not to get off track. He wrote that when the media came into the area, they had their tripods over their shoulders. Like, what did he say? Like guns or something like that. There was an author that wrote so a really prejudicial, they just don't like cameras out there in Idaho. But anyhow, go ahead, Doug.
I mean, there is going to be access, but it's going to be controlled access in this particular way. So the other two aspects of the case that are being ruled on right now are a change of venue and taking the death penalty off the table for Chad. Now, one of the things I found kind of amazing, Well, like I say, these two people are nuts. Come on. And,
It's sad though.
I wouldn't want to be defending either of these two. But as I understand, part of the defense's claims are that when the bodies of the two children were found in the pet cemetery in the backyard, they were shallow graves, or there were, I
Mhm.
believe there were body parts scattered all over the backyard in one case. One of their one of their defenses is that because Chad was a former gravedigger, he would have dug a very much deeper grave if he actually did it. And it's like, I don't know. I read that, I just laughed. I said, "What are you, nuts? Are you as nuts as these two?"
Well, one of the reprehensible things about them both is that they believed that young Tylee and young JJ were no longer themselves. That especially
Yeah.
Tylee, apparently another body had or another being had possessed her body, and it wasn't Tylee anymore. And so,
JJ
if
was
they,
autistic, and
yeah,
that
and so
I'm
it's
sure
just sick
that can connect to it.
how people can get so far off track in life to think that and they started with a legitimate faith. They were Mormon, and then they took that and they bent it and twisted it, and just like other religions have been bent and twisted to people's ways, it boggles my mind. The other thing that came to mind, you were talking about the trial. I watched some of the trial. It was on YouTube. You were allowed to watch it only on YouTube,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like trials where they were able to zoom in. When they showed the defense table, and again, I'm not a big follower and believer in body language, but Lori Daybell would be sitting in the middle of the table. Both of her attorneys were like turned away. Now, every now and then she would turn to one of them and whisper something in the ear, but the attorneys, one of them was just kind of slumped down like this. So
It's like,
seriously, you
in other
could tell
words,
that even her own attorneys
yeah, even her
didn't
own
have a whole
attorneys,
lot to say.
yeah, even her own attorneys didn't want to hear what she had to say because they knew that they would just dig the hole deeper, so to speak. So,
So,
yeah, this case, April 1st before this comes to
yeah.
trial, but it would seem to me that it's pretty much going to be the same outcome. So,
Well, that's fast. I mean, to have a trial in April 1st means that, first of all, the holidays are coming up, but I wouldn't think that the attorneys are going to take a lot of joy in it because, it's a death penalty case. Whether the judge takes that off the table, we don't know right now today.
yeah,
But if it's a death penalty case, I mean, not that every attorney shouldn't take every case very seriously, as I've said before, but I mean, if your client is going to go away because you've done something stupid, you're having some sleepless nights. So to have a trial come up in April, the way I see it, is pretty fast. So,
well, tell me, as an attorney, I mean, if I'm just sitting here,
Yeah.
trying to contemplate, what's going to happen next April, I would say, based on the last case, on Lori's case, that the death penalty will be taken off the table. And I would also believe that there will probably not be a change of venue, that the circumstances will be similar to Lori's trial, and that this will, in fact, take place in the same courthouse as Lori's trial was, under the same circumstances, with video being available both at the courthouse and at another facility back in the original jurisdiction. So, I mean, if I were a betting man, I would say that's what's going to happen.
Well, I don't give odds, and I'm going to hold you to all of those predictions because,
Yeah.
again, if we get comments down below, well, you missed this, you didn't say that. This is such a deep case, and I hate that old analogy that it's an onion with a lot of different layers. But if that analogy applies to any case, this is the case, and I'm going to hold you to those because I never give odds on a trial. I just don't. I mean, think back to the OJ case. Did you see
Yeah.
that coming?
No.
I mean,
No.
you just, I've gone to court and seen some outcomes that just you never would have believed. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna say I think that it's gonna go one way or the other because you just never know. You really don't. So I guess that's it for this one. Any closing thoughts, Lainey?
No, I mean, the whole case, as crazy as it seems, because it's like when you think about zombies and taking over people's bodies, it seems, so fictitious, but it is a really sad story and it's unfortunate. And it's just hard to think about, what goes on in people that they get to be emotionally and mentally in that state. But let us know what your thoughts are and opinions are in the comments down below. And thank you, Doug, for once again joining us on another episode of About the Law.
Yep. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. I'm going to hold you to those predictions. That's why I didn't make any predictions.
Maybe after Chad's convicted, they'll both be in the same cell and they'll live happily ever after as two nuts together.
Oh, I doubt that. I highly doubt that. Well, wouldn't she be in a facility for women and he'd be in a facility for men?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, come on now. Everything's all unisex and everything now. Maybe
not in the penal system. Not in the penal system. This PC stuff doesn't really go to the penal system, as I understand it. Although there have been some crazy cases that I don't even want to go into. But you and I both know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. Thank you, folks. Please remember to subscribe and like and do all that good stuff. And I hope you have a great day. You have been watching About the Law, a production of the law offices of Andrew D. Myers in Methuen in the Merrimack Valley of Massachusetts and in Derry, just outside of Manchester, New Hampshire. Remember to click the like and subscribe buttons down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with your friends and others. If you'd like to talk to me about an injury case, a car accident, a slip and fall, a serious bodily injury case, or some other case, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk to you. You can contact us through my website at attorney-myers.com. We have a contact us block, or you can call on one of the telephone numbers we've given there, or you can email me at andrew@attorney-myers.com. The foregoing is offered for informational purposes only. It is not intended as and does not constitute legal advice. Laws vary widely from state to state. You should rely only on the advice given to you during a personal consultation by a local attorney thoroughly familiar with state laws and the area of practice in which your concern lies. This podcast must be and hereby is labeled advertisement in some jurisdictions. And that's that.